Listen, I wanted to give y'all an empowering teaching on today on building divine momentum. All right, we're going to be talking about building momentum. Now, this is for the people that are high performers, the people that are businessmen, entrepreneurs, people in ministry. If you are somebody who's trying to build something big, you believe you have a big purpose in life, you are going to need to build up a certain level of momentum to really create enough of a driving force to really break through that ceiling that you feel like you've been under or been capped by your entire life. Now, if you want to build something big and you want to actually get your business off of the ground, there's going to you're going to have to build momentum. It's going to take a lot of strategies. It's going to take having systems in place. It's going to take having small goals and small little habits. Like, I mean, really small habits. Like, you're going to have to pay attention to detail. And those small habits that are built up with consistency over a period of time kind of help push you off the ground, if that makes sense. So here's the truth about momentum, right? High performers don't find momentum, they engineer it. And the ones who sustain it long term, they do something way different than what everybody else does. A lot of people are just going through the motions of life, right? They're just letting life happen to them, accepting life for what it is, or they wait for life to happen. And now they're, like I talked to you guys about before, they're just scrambling and they're trying to catch up. They're not being proactive. They're just working their everyday job, just kind of letting life go as it is. And nothing is actually going to supernaturally advance in your life until you get in the presence of God and you get the blueprint of heaven for your life and you really put that step by step plan, that system, and that strategy in place, and you're consistent with it, right? To really build up that momentum over a period of time. Now, people, high performers, they build momentum in layers, not in sprints. So the momentum for breakthrough isn't built from random tasks just to look productive, but it's built from number one, identity coherence. Why do I say this? Because identity coherence means that your inner self, your beliefs, your values, and your goals consistently align with your actions and your decision making. Come on here, somebody. So you don't make decisions out of alignment with your purpose in God. How are you going to build divine momentum for breakthrough and also have heaven's backing in doing so? Remember when I told you all, there's a different grace that falls upon a person for effectiveness, for efficiency, when they're in alignment with who heaven says that they are. Now, that doesn't mean just saying, oh, I know who I am in God, but your actions and your decisions align with that. They back it up. So that means there are no limitations in your belief systems, not just your words, but your actions and your decisions show that you know who you are in God. It creates stability and a unified sense of self-concept. So really the first thing is about aligning your internal narrative and your daily choices with your purpose and your core values. So when I talk to you all about things like double-mindedness and mode switching, instability that creates limited or bad decision making, you have to realize that every time your decisions do not align with your values, your core identity, or your purpose, you are slowing down your momentum. Amen. Which is why there's always a halt in your ability to transition into greater levels of glory. Can I speak to somebody on today? So there has to be a certain amount of momentum built up to get off the ground, like we had talked about at the beginning of the video. So think of this as you're not just doing tasks, but you're stepping into a role. You don't just say who you are in God. You're stepping into the role of that identity. That's why it's going to cause you, you know, that's going to cause all of your decisions and your habits to have to change. And that's why a lot of people never truly come in alignment, or a lot of believers, they live a very limited life because they say they know who they are in God, but they still have dysfunctions. They still have toxic behavior. They still have a decision making that you can tell is fear-based, based off of trying to stay in their comfort zone, trying to stay in safety. So when I really say you are stepping into a role, all right, so God, that means you're going to have to make some decisions that are scary. You're going to make some decisions that are going to shock your nervous system because your nervous system and your brain are not used to expanding at this level. They're not used to walking into those unknown places, and God is going to ask you to do that. So now, another thing is you're not just going to be staying hyper busy every day so that you can feel productive. You're not just working random jobs to feel like you're accomplishing something, because we know that there can be people out there that are busy, that work 2, 3 jobs just to make ends meet, but they're not actually moving. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So you're stepping into the role that heaven has for you here on earth. Momentum means the force or speed gained by a series of events that drives things forward with numerous applications. So think about the step-by-step plan that has to be in place, the systems and strategies that have to be laid in your foundation. There has to be security. You have to be in the place of prayer and fasting to even have the instruction of God. All right. So if you don't spend enough time with Him, you're not going to know how to put these things into place. The spiritual strength to combat and do the warfare against all of the different attacks that might pop up in the middle of you trying to build that momentum, because you know as soon as you get momentum, the enemy is going to come up and he's going to trigger all of these demonic assignments around you. You have to be ready for all of this stuff. You have to focus on building the skill set. Are you organizing? Are you storing? Are you managing your time efficiently in a way that will work toward building that momentum? Or do you notice the enemy is using time against you? Right? So if you're constantly stopping and going, you are not going to build enough momentum to get something that's world changing off of the ground, or at least get something off the ground that's life changing enough for the people around you. So building momentum is also about micro wins that compound. Momentum is built off of the strategy, the planning, the preparation, but also more importantly, the spiritual stamina and the energy that you build up in the place of prayer while mastering, focusing on your emotional state on the right things. Why? Not focusing it on the wrong things. Therefore, because if you focus on the wrong things, it's going to create reactive and impulsive decision making that are going to cause you to go back to those false comforts, the false securities, those old habits and behaviors that are going to eventually deplete your energy. They're going to deplete the strength of your spirit, man. And it's going to start causing you to sabotage. All of these things are going to slow down your momentum. That's why it's important to pay attention to the details. Now, I'm going to do a part 2 to this video, and part 2 to this video is going to be talking about building or conserving energy, right? Because that's going to be a big part of the building of momentum. So a big part of this being strategic is conserving your energy in a way where you don't burn out. Now, the enemy wants to discourage, he wants to distract, he wants to throw you off of your game any way he can, because he doesn't want you to have enough force to be able to push through. So your nervous system needs evidence that you're moving forward, right? The Bible says if your hope is deferred, it'll make your heart sick. So it'll tell your nervous system you're not making any progress. So then you'll start getting discouraged, and you don't want that to happen, because the trick is you have to redirect your mind and your focus on the right things. Stop focusing on what didn't happen, what you can't control, and start focusing on what you can be in control of right now. Now, those small decisions and actions you can take right now that will build incremental progress over a period of time. Choose actions that are so small, habits that are so small, but they're impossible to resist, and complete them consistently. Listen, Winston Churchill said, to build may have to be the slow and laborious task of years. To destroy can be the thoughtless act of a single day. That's powerful right there, because it's true. Anybody who's built something that's big, that's global, that's world changing, it took them years and years to do it. When you see some of the greatest leaders in the world today, even ministers, apostles, prophets, they've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years. They've been building consistently over a period of time. So small actions, they lead to incremental progress. You have to show gratitude for the small wins. Celebrating the small wins will build up self-esteem to restore your hope moving forward. All of this stuff is important. So for example, with the small decisions, you got, let's say, a few hours of focused work every day. One clarified decision that you know is from God. One email sent out. Let's say you got one new client this week. Celebrate these things and show gratitude for them to start building up your hope for moving forward in the future. Let's say you're having trouble with getting over the hump or getting yourself to begin the work. I have a lot of people that struggle with this, and I also talk about this in my Breaking the Cycles of Self-Sabotage course that I just launched. Let's say you're in school, right? And you don't want to do your schoolwork, but you love doing music. So you're going to say, okay, I'm going to interconnect the work that I don't want to do with something that I love to do as my reward. So I'm not going to do my music until I finish this homework assignment. So I'm going to finish this homework assignment, and when I'm done, I'm going to celebrate by getting into the studio and recording this song that I've been wanting to record lately. So that's your way of making yourself more enthused or excited about doing the work that you don't want to do because you have a reward waiting for you. Now, what I am not saying is that we want to begin to make this an idol or a thing where if we don't have something to look forward to, we don't end up doing the work. I don't want to make this a thing to where if we're not motivated, we don't do the work. But it's supposed to give you a burst of enough healthy dopamine, enough to get you over that initial hump. And now let's say 15, 20 minutes into your into your schoolwork. Now you're in your flow state, and this is how you begin to build momentum. These micro wins, they create dopamine safe progression, as they would say. So this will start to build back up your expectation. It'll start to build back up your enthusiasm, restore your hope, build your faith. Amen. Come on, somebody. Now, the next thing, feedback loops that reinforce your identity. Feedback loops that reinforce your identity. So momentum begins to accelerate when you create systems that reflect your progress back to you. All right. Now, this can look like something such as a visual tracker. You have to track your weekly, your monthly progress. And when you see your weekly or your monthly progress, is this reinforcing who you are in God, or is this reinforcing bad habits? Analyze how much you're growing and you're progressing. Do daily, weekly, and monthly reflection. You have to reflect on and examine what is working and what is not working in my system. All right. It's slowing your moment. Anything that you have in your system or in your daily habits that is not healthy, obviously is going to slow down that momentum. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a glitch or a hindrance in your ability to transition into the next level. So once you identify these things, that's why it's important to not only reflect, but once you identify what's working and what's not, remove what is and what isn't. Make the necessary adjustments moving forward so that things begin to flow better. Because once you clean things out of your system, you change your approach, whatever you need to do, you'll notice a certain flow and a certain progression that you didn't have before. But when people do not reflect or examine their experiences, when they do not examine their progress, examine their system, how they're functioning, what's working and what's not, when you don't pay attention to those details, it is so easy for you to have blind spots, for the enemy to slip his way in, and it's so easy for your momentum to slow down, and you're wondering why I'm always almost making it, but I'm never quite hitting the mark. You have to start to pay attention to all these things. Keep a wins log. Keep track of the small wins. Like I said, celebrate and show gratitude for those wins. Okay. And now you begin to let the emotional payoff rebuild your passion. It rebuilds your expectation, your anticipation, and your internal velocity. Come on here, somebody. So what is internal velocity? It's the perceived rate of progress that you have toward your goals and the speed at which you process information and are able to execute the tasks that are required for destiny. So this plays into your emotional responses, which is actually important for building momentum, because your perceived velocity, it directly influences emotions and motivation. So let's say, for example, rapid progress is going to get somebody very enthused and excited. It's going to get them motivated. It's going to keep them expectant for great things to happen. But on the other hand, if you're progressing slower than you like, it often results in negative feelings, discouragement, hopelessness, because the Bible, again, it says that hope deferred maketh the heart sick. So when someone feels like they're not making progress or they're just stagnant, eventually it's going to take a toll on one's mental state, therefore depleting their spirit man until they're depleted of energy and they're ready to check out. So if you have to identify when these types of things might be happening in your life or in your situation. And if you can identify and you can catch it, then you can realign yourself, get back in the presence of God, ask him to rejuvenate and re-energize you and restructure, change your approach, whatever adjustments you have to make to continue forward, make the necessary adjustments. All right. Now, the thing is, too, you want to ask yourself meaningful questions in these situations, especially when you're examining, when you're reflecting on the progress you're making, reflecting on what's working and what's not. You also want to ask yourself meaningful questions. For example, Who am I becoming through this? Is this for my own glory, my own agenda, or for heaven's agenda? Is this aligning with my ego or my heavenly identity? Why is what I'm doing, why does it matter? Is there something that I'm doing that's useless and doesn't matter, therefore it's getting in the way? Because functioning in your heavenly identity is going to have a stronger backing, right? You're going to have a stronger grace from heaven than if it was just for you, which, well, obviously, if you have the backing of heaven, it's going to produce divine momentum, not just man-made, engineered momentum. Another question you want to ask is, what storyline am I reinforcing with each action and decision that I make? So is this a storyline that came from some type of lie? Did this come from the trauma of my past? Or is this the blueprint in the scroll of heaven being unrolled out in my life? So when your actions, understand something, when your actions reinforce your God-given identity, divine momentum becomes fueled by the power of heaven rather than just by your own human strength. It's a huge difference. Another thing is you need directional clarity for taking the first step. This is going to come from being in the presence of God. And this is why I suggest fasting and praying to everybody, because when you fast, everything in the spirit begins to amplify. And the voice of God is enhanced. It's louder. And you're crucifying the flesh so that you can hear better in the spirit. And this is usually when God brings regeneration. You feel, a lot of times people get out of fast and they feel younger, they feel healthier, they feel re-energized. You get wisdom, you get insight and revelation. So if you feel confused on what the next step is that you should take, I suggest fasting and praying. And always remember this too. It's progress over perfection. A lot of people hesitate and they procrastinate, which is why they can never get off the ground, because they feel like they need to have a perfect plan. You don't have to have a perfect plan. Take what God has given you, what you already have, and start with that. You have to ask, what direction am I moving in? Am I moving in the direction of safety and what's familiar to me? What is the destination or the goal? Am I making decisions that are pushing my boundaries and causing me to stretch? Or, am I staying in my comfort zone? Write the vision and make it plain. You want to do that too. Write the vision and make it plain. What are the small goals that lead to the big ones? What's the next meaningful step that I can take? Not the perfect one, but the next purposeful step, right? Not just a step trying to look busy. What is the next step that's perfect, purposeful, that's productive, and aligned with heaven's assignment? Understand that momentum is going to collapse when you try to focus too much on the negative, too much on being perfect, focusing too much on, well, I have to have all the details first before I take the step. You don't. All of that is going to cause you to hesitate and procrastinate, and that's when your momentum is going to collapse completely. So remember, and I'm going to leave y'all off with this, and then part 2 to this is going to be energy management. We're going to be talking about energy management, which is very important for high performers and people who are building something big. I'm going to leave y'all with this. You need the strategies, the blueprints, the small goals, and the little habits built with consistency over a period of time to build momentum. And you need time in the presence of God to fuel you with the stamina and the wisdom you need to combat and outwit the enemy so that you can continue building the momentum even when the warfare arises. It's not going to slow you down. You can continue pushing and fighting and fighting forward. All right? Now, part 2 to this with the energy management, it's going to be so important because you have to identify what fuels your energy and what does not fuel your energy. You have to deal with your stress levels. You have to deal with all these things, because what the enemy wants to do is he not only wants to rise up and attack you, but he wants to get you burnt out. That's one of the attacks that he has, is burnout, fatigue, spiritual slumber. And when you feel like that and you're not able to continue, it's going to hinder your effectiveness, your ability to perform. And so we're going to be talking about all of that in part 2. So I love y'all. Stay tuned. Come on, let's get it.